The Voter Service and Polling Center at 720 North Main Street, Suite 200, the Pueblo County Election Department. So 720 North Main Street, Suite 20, Pueblo County Election Department. They're open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. And then it said on Saturday, on November 4th, they're open from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then on Election Day, they're open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And that'll be next Tuesday. There's a 24-hour drop-off location, so that's 720 North Main Street at the back of the building. Also at the Colorado State Fair at 950 South Prairie Avenue, outside of the Prairie Gate entrance. The Lamb Branch Library, 2525 South Boulevard, Pueblo Boulevard, near the entrance. You could drop it off there. So there's 24-hour drop-off locations. Pueblo County Sheriff's Substation in Pueblo West, 320 East Joe Martinez Boulevard. 4 spots. There's 24-hour drop-off locations for those 4 spots, Monday to Sunday, 24 hours, and then on Tuesday up until 7 p.m. So that actually saves you the stamp cost, but you got to at least drive there. I think it saves you the stamp cost. You might actually have to pay for the stamp, so don't quote me on that. But there is a place for you to drop it off. I believe I'll probably drop it off at the Lamb Branch Library. And then there's some ballot drop-off locations. So the Pueblo County Courthouse, and then the Colorado City Metropolitan District, the Barkman Library, Tom L. and Anna Marie Geodun Library, and then the Pueblo West Library secure drive-up locations, Pueblo County Courthouse, 215 West 10th Street, West Side Court Street. So there's several places for you to drop them off. Also, you could just drop it in the mailbox. There's several people who were arrested over the weekend here in Pueblo for just a simple possession charge, and then there was one person who was arrested for burglary, but then it also says of an unspecified address, which leads me to believe that it's a homeless person. So you had Christy Nicole Duran, 25 years old, of 4900 block of Applecrest Drive, arrested Saturday on suspicion of unlawful possession of a controlled substance and introduction of contraband. What's the contraband? What's the controlled substance? I don't know. And then Jessica Brooke Napier, 25 years old, of Pueblo West, arrested Saturday, suspicion of possession of a Schedule II controlled substance. She's being held at jail without bail pending a court appearance. Then you have Chelsea Noel Joy Horn, 24. So that's another person in suspicion of unlawful possession of a controlled substance. So one said controlled II substance, 2 of them just said controlled substance, and then that's it. So the only thing that these 3 folks are charged with is a petty, simple possession. Now, I once heard that somebody said that usually it's a bigger crime, but then they plead down to this. And so if that's true, tell me the truth. You know, don't just say that they're trying to be nice to the person. That doesn't help, because I want you to go after the burglars, to the violent people, to the rapists, to the murderers, to the real criminals. And then this guy, yes, you shouldn't be burglarizing, second-degree burglary, but is he just living in an abandoned house? And he has no address. So is Christopher Michael Leba? He's homeless. He has no address. So Christopher Higgins II, 31 years old, of Pueblo West, was arrested for second-degree assault causing serious injury. Okay, there you go, police. This is good. This is a good arrest. He deserves to be in jail. Brandon Lee Montoya, 21, of the 1300 block East 9th Street, arrested Saturday for suspicion of aggravated motor vehicle theft. So he's being held in jail in lieu of a $110,000 bail. Another good one. That's a good one too. So the people stealing cars, people going around causing injury, yes, those 2. And then even Christopher, he was burglarizing, so I say yes, he deserves his arrest also. But he's also homeless. So that's what we're doing. We're essentially letting the homeless people live on the street. There's no shelter. And then there's no, they have no incentive not to commit a crime, because once they commit a crime, they get their housing. They get their housing. They get their shelter. They get their food. A couple folks who are running that are principally against the war on drugs. So, I mean, we're adults. We're Americans. We have a right to our own body. The war on drugs has failed, so we need to minimize the harm. because if we don't minimize the harm, then the rest of us are going to be victims of, this bullshit. But I want to talk about the fairness of this election. So essentially, how do I see these elections? We've got 5 school board members, we got 7 at-large, we got 2 district races, and then we got 5 ballot questions. And has it been fair so far? I would say so far it has been fair. If you would have got your signatures in, then you would have been allowed to run ballot questions. I think so far it all has been fair. When I look at District 1, I think it's a toss-up, 33 to 33%. So I think they all have the exact same equal chances. Schilling, Farrell, and Stapleton. District 3, that's also a 50-50 coin toss when it comes to District 3. I think it's been pretty fair. I think District 1 is it's a toss-up too, right? So there's 3 candidates. They all have the same chances. There's 5 school board members. Now, while I'll say that it was fair because Dennis Mays is in the race, Dennis Mays he's got the name on the Judicial Center. So every time anybody mentions, go to the Judicial Building, then they have to say go to the Dennis Mays Building. So Dennis Mays he's just a clear front runner when it comes to the school board race. And then that allows for only one other person to be elected. So none of the other races are like that. So he's the only one, and that's only because his reputation precedes him. The 7 at-large candidates, this is a clusterfuck, okay? So you got 7 candidates, and none of them, to the 7 candidates of the at-large race, none of them are Donald Trump. None of them was one big bully trying to push the other bullies around. None of them have a Dennis Mays sort of stature. Dennis Flores, I would say, kind of. He seems like he's part of the establishment of politics. Seems like a pretty serious man. He's all over the place and has an impressive resume. But out of the 7, it just doesn't seem that one has broken free. I mean, Joe Latino, he had actually really good answers. Jason Muniz had good answers. Mark Aliff had good answers. And so, Aisha, I thought Aisha was leading there for a minute. And then Dennis is leading. And then, so I don't know. I think it's a clusterfuck. And so I don't know if any 2-person have actually broken free to where the public, the masses, will rally behind 1 or 2 people. 5 ballot questions. While I don't like Big Daddy Strange, question 2A, because I think it's illegal, they're fairly worded in the sense that it's a yes and no question, and so I think people should be able to read and understand the gist. And then, in general, I like mail-in ballots. I like how Colorado or how Pueblo City does the mail-in ballots. So it gives me nearly a month, definitely 3 weeks to think about who I want to vote for. And it's not just one day, so I have to rush to the polls and then, be intimidated by some right or left-wing fascist asshole. And the mail-in ballots, there's a 50-cent barrier to entry, but they mail it to your house. 50 cents isn't that bad. I mean, it would cost that much to get there and transportation cost. So I think it's a brilliant method. I love how they do the mail-in ballots here. And I guess, what happens to the mail-in ballots? How do they count them? Are they counting them now? Do they see our things? Can we get a little bit of clarity? So essentially, I think that I feel a little bad because I call them the lesser of the 2 evils. I don't want to say the lesser of the 2 evils. Maybe I don't know. I'll say it this way. So Tommy Farrell, I lean towards the direction of Tommy Farrell. He's in favor of solar trees since I trust that he's telling the truth when it comes to, I think he's a lefty in terms of being a Democrat. So when it comes to busing, when it comes to the zoo, when it comes to some of these social services, I think he would be in favor of it. So I don't have to ask him, but I haven't asked him, so I probably should find that out. But it just seems to me that there's no doubt that he will support the zoo and he'll support busing, where he's not philosophically opposed to it as some, other folks. But he also supports PEDCO and the Chamber of Commerce. So it seems if Tommy Farrell was more, if Michael Stapleton got in there or Tommy Farrell got in there, I would be happy with both. Just overall, Schilling is the incumbent, even if he was decent. Bob Schilling should have elevated somebody. Bob Schilling should have picked a successor. Bob Schilling should have gone on to become a state representative or a city manager or somebody, else. So since Bob Schilling, it's just like he sticks with one position and just tries to monopolize it. And it's like you're not leaving room for anybody else, and you're not helping to elevate anybody else. So essentially, Bob Schilling is a career politician or a career city councilman. He's already been in there for 10 years. Was he want another 10 years? 8 years was good enough for George Washington. So if it's good enough for George Washington, I think we do need term limits. We don't need people just running, forever and ever. And with the entrenched politician, the entrenched incumbency, the entrenched power, the incumbency, it's hard for newcomers to. Seems as though Mark Aliff has an issue with gay folks. Both Michael Stapleton and Tommy Farrell are in favor of gay marriage, and this has nothing to do with the city government, but I think it has to do with morality. So Michael Stapleton and Tommy Farrell have a clear sense, a clear moral constitution when it comes to gay folks, whereas Mark Aliff, who's not running against them, does not. Michael Stapleton is also principally against the war on drugs. He's against the war in general. So that's not, that's an empire. That's bullshit what's going on. He's in favor of personal freedom, so prostitution, gay marriage, war on drugs. He's against war on drugs, so he thinks that we have a right to our own body. He seems susceptible to waste-to-energy plans. He also is in favor of municipal electric. He thinks that municipal electric can be a player. That's one option of many. He's not in favor of, Stapleton is not in favor of municipal Wi-Fi. So that's one thing with Tommy Farrell. Tommy Farrell has a step over Michael Stapleton when it comes to Wi-Fi. So I think Stapleton is against Wi-Fi, and then he's against solar trees. But I asked specifically Michael Stapleton if he was for the zoo and if he was for busing, and he said yes. And so that does make me feel comfortable with him and parks. So he's for parks and busing and the zoo. And so it feels like because it's not so much, he's not starting new social programs, but he recognizes that they're already here. So he's not going to deprive the poor people of transportation. And then when it comes to the zoo, Michael Stapleton said that the zoo is important to raise the standard of living and the quality of life that we have. So a zoo would make it, Pueblo City a nice place to live, which would encourage corporations and people to, come in and spend some money here. When it comes to Pedco, Michael Stapleton had a really good answer with Pedco. You have Michael Stapleton who says that he's against corporatism. So he's fundamentally, philosophically against Pedco, having some group where we just give corporations money. He's against corporatism. So he's against the idea of government and corporations fusing together like FDR and Mussolini defined fascism. So that's awesome. He's basically saying that the people voted for Pedco, so we're stuck with Pedco, but he hates it philosophically. He's against corporatism. So, that's Pedco's kind of a dicey thing, but he's answering Pedco just like Josh Bruns is. So if Michael Stapleton was for solar trees and Wi-Fi, then I would vote for Michael Stapleton if I was in District 1. But he's not for solar trees, he's not for Wi-Fi, but he's for a zoo. And doesn't that increase the standard of living? Wouldn't solar trees increase? So I think that would encourage. That being said, that I think they both would be better than Bob Schilling, hands down. I don't even think that's a question. It's time for change. It's time to do something different. So with Tommy Farrell, I wish that he was more for waste-to-energy programs. Like I could feel it. Like I could feel it when he answers like he wants to do it. He says, yeah, he'll do it, but he doesn't. It doesn't feel like he'll actually go for it. So Michael Stapleton is for waste to electricity, keeping that as an option, looking into that, thinking about that. So we got to think outside the box. But then Tommy Farrell is for Wi-Fi, right? He's for solar trees and Wi-Fi. So with Tommy Farrell, at least, I'm assuming the busing and the zoo thing because he's a lefty, but I think it's a fair assumption. I could ask him specifically. I should ask him specifically. I'm not voting in the race, but because he's a lefty, I think that he would just be for a zoo. Go back to the fairness of the election. Right now, they're mailing a bunch of ballots in, and I don't know if they're keeping them in a pile and then they'll just open them all up because everybody's got to seal them. But everybody's got their number. You could actually track your ballot to make sure that the ballot has actually been entered into the system. Or maybe they count the ballot as they come in. If they count the ballot as they come in, then that means they would have a general notion who's winning, who's losing. So that doesn't seem fair to me. So, where it goes, the county takes care of this election. Because the county is taking care of the election, that actually does make me feel okay with it. It makes me feel comfortable with it because nobody's in the city. The only bad thing about the county is the jail issue. So the county was able to slip this jail issue on essentially what is a Pueblo city ballot. It's our school board. It's our city council. 4 of the 5 ballot questions have to do with the city. So what the fuck is the county meddling? Besides that one issue, 1A, that's the only place where I could see that the county could be corrupt. So it's kind of just a non-biased, third party who's administering the city's election. So everything else that is not county related, I actually do feel a sense of fairness with it because they don't have a dog in the fight. They just want a nice, good, clean election. So I would say that the county actually does make me feel like it'll be a fair election, and then that's it. So that's essentially, I think it's overall has been a pretty fair election. I've enjoyed the institutions. Colorado, what's right with Colorado can fix what is wrong with Colorado. There's plenty of democracy. There's plenty of democratic elements, and there's ways for the people to get their voice heard. And so that just gives me hope. So good job, Pueblo City.
In this upcoming election. So again, welcome, and Steve, I'm going to turn